Hi, I'm going to share with you some information about the comprehension and vocabulary assessments coming up so that you have tips and understand how to give them more fully. For the comprehension assessment, it is a closed assessment, and closed assessments are when kids fill in the blank with a word. And for this one, they are given three choices to pick from. It's an interesting assessment. I feel like it's hard to do an assessment for comprehension that isn't listening to a kid talk about what they read. And I think this is kind of as best as it gets in terms of something that is quantitative rather than qualitative. So I have a couple issues with the assessment in terms of exactly knowing what kind of information it's giving you, but I feel like it does provide a window into the child's comprehension, so I feel like it is a really good assessment to give. And it's especially a good assessment if you're doing a full battery of assessments. I don't know if I would just give this assessment to the kid, but it is great too because we can give it whole school and you can compare kids with each other just in terms of how they're understanding a text, their processing time, etc. So I feel like in that way you can use it as a universal screener and it could be very useful. So what I would say that it is a time test and they have to just fill in the words quickly. So kids that are more meticulous and have a slow processing time will score lower on this test. But usually with comprehension, if kids are taking a longer time reading a text, they will also have poorer comprehension. So it should mirror. But with some kids who are, I'm talking about ELL students because that's a lot of my experience. With ELL students, their processing time isn't necessarily, could have to do with more like translating it in their mind. And so not necessarily that they have a slow processing time, but it's more about translating the text. So I feel like it gives a view into their comprehension, their processing time, but it should just be one part of the assessment puzzle and not the only assessment you base your instruction on. So I'm just putting that out there for you. And I'm interested to see how you guys see I'm interested to see if it matches up with your findings already and how it correlates with the student's DRA level. So then the vocabulary assessment. The vocabulary assessment just gives you words and the kids have to circle a synonym. Please do not read this test. I'm going to repeat it again. Please do not read this test. This is not an oral vocabulary assessment. If you'd like to give an oral vocabulary assessment, I have an oral vocabulary assessment for you to give and I can email it to you. But this is not an assessment of a student's oral vocabulary. There's other great picture assessments out there for kids to talk about pictures and etc. and that's for oral. This is a reading vocabulary assessment. So it's to gauge how the student is actually processing the vocabulary that they're reading in the text. So if the student's a poor reader, they're going to have a hard time with this. But do not read it to them. Explain the directions as it is on the form and try not to give it any other assistance because it won't give you a true picture of their ability to read vocabulary in the text. So both of these assessments, you can give them two different ways. So I'm going to explain those, and I want you guys to make the choice of what you want to do. So you could test the students at their grade level. So if you have a 5th grade case study student, you can assess them at their grade level, give them the 5th grade assessment, and you can find out what they are in relation to their peers, their comprehension and their vocabulary level in relation to their peers. So you probably, considering they are struggling readers, they may get intensive, but you might be interested. Some of the students may get not intermediate invention, I forget the second level, but strategic, right? They may get strategic. So the other way you can give the assessment, or you could do both of these ways, which I probably would do, but the other way you can give the assessment is to kind of gauge what level they are at. So It's tricky though to know where to start, and there's no magic bullet to know where to start, but you can think about where their DRA is, and you can give them the same fifth grade student. If you want to see what level their comprehension is at, you can give them, say they scored a 16 on their DRA. So maybe you want to start giving them the first grade comprehension assessment and see where they land there. And then if they do really well in that, maybe you want to give them the second and the third. I wouldn't give them all of them, but if you want to get an idea, you may give them a couple to see where they land. And the same thing for the vocabulary assessment. If you want to know actually what their reading vocabulary level is at, you can, again, if their DRA is a 16, I would probably start at a first grade level, see how they do in the first grade level. This is the fifth grader we're talking about again. And then if they score benchmark on the first grade, move them up, see how they do in the second grade. If you give it to them at their grade level, the fifth grader at the fifth grade, you're going to probably see that they're, need intervention. If you give it to them at their DRA level or at their instructional level, where they're at in their reading, you're going to see more into the intricacies of where they're actually at. So I hope that makes sense. Again, you can give it either way, at their instructional level, independent level, or at their grade level, and it's your choice. And again, I would probably do both just because I would be interested, but I know that you guys have time restraints too, so choose which works for you. And I would also choose based on what information you want to find out about your student, and if you're eager to find more out about their vocabulary, you may want to try doing it both ways. So all right, let us know if you have any questions. I know that was a bit rambling, but I hope it gave you an overview of the assessment. Thanks so much. Bye.